You know, as I sat here, I want to thank Bill York. Special thanks. Because see, when I got here this morning, it's not that I'm old. But however, I saw Dan Sakota, former member of the executive committee that I served with. And who else did I say? Oh, Sue Helby. Yes, another member of the executive committee I served with. And all these past presidents that I know. Dick and Kathy and Monica. But Dick, I haven't been to 49 of these, and I appreciate that you're here. I just feel so much better knowing I'm not the oldest one here. Talk about a story. You know, when you start in this organization, all the staff are older than you are. Well, then there came a point in time I started noticing that some of our staff at NEA are younger than my children. But this fall, I'm in this small meeting, a young man on the NEA staff, and he was doing a presentation, he closed it with this. Today is a really special day. It's my mom's birthday. She's turning 60. I said, oh my God, I'm older than their parents. You know, it is good to be here. And you know what, it is really special. I happen to have been in Spokane, Washington, when you were having your assembly in Coeur d'Alene on Robin's last year. So I just slipped over to give her a special gift. A gift. And I was here on Kathy's last week. So I'm really glad that I'm here for your share. And so I was thinking about, I needed to bring you a little special gift. And you know, with carry-on luggage, it's hard to figure out what you can pack in your suitcase, but I found it. Do you know where that is? Oh, here it is. I slipped this in my briefcase. For the IEA president, Sherry Wood. There's one I borrow quite often. I like it because I made it up. In a world of paradigms, shift happens. And actually, you know, in the field of science, the concept of paradigm is a very powerful thing. It's the ability to look at things that everyone else sees, but you see them in a very different way. In Idaho, I experienced a shift in paradigms. You see, I've been watching football games all my life. But the first time I ever went in that stadium, it was all blue field. That was a paradigm shift. I didn't know that that's what a football field could possibly look like. But then I watched them play and I go, whoa, this is a football team. Yeah. A very serious paradigm shift that I had one year as a teacher. It was a geometry class. I remember where she sat. Third row over, class C. And in my class, all my students had to establish a goal. Not what you want, but what you have to have in order to feel good inside. Like maybe it's a C because you can't drive unless you bring home a C. But it's that grade that you have to have in order to feel okay. And then I make a big deal about meeting your goal. That my job is to get you there. If your goal is to only get a D and pass, well then, if you pass, then you reach that goal. Now, that doesn't mean I don't encourage you to set higher, but I want you to know what you have to have. So one year in the class, it was about 5 weeks in, and this young woman who sat in my class, third row over last seat, what I saw in her, she was very quiet in the class. Really didn't ever participate in asking questions. Her grade was about a C. didn't seem to be a very interested or motivated student. And that day in class, in all of my classes, I had asked them to write me a letter, first paragraph. 3 things that I think inhibit me from, or if you didn't reach your goal, 3 things I'm willing to do differently that I think will help me reach my goal are, second paragraph, 3 things that Mr. V could do that would help me reach my goal are. And then I added a third one at the last moment. I said, the third paragraph, I want you to say, 3 things that Mr. V does not know about me that he should know are. So write your letters. So that night I went home and I read 160 letters from all my students. And I got to hers. And I read the first part, the second part. I got to that third paragraph. And it said, one thing I think Mr. V needs to know is that one thing Mr. V needs to know is that 2 weeks before school started, my dad died. And although I know school is important, it's just hard to feel that right now. Let me tell you, that was a paradigm shift. I no longer saw a girl who was quiet in class and didn't seem to care much, or wasn't motivated to do well in school. And see, I think sometimes that's what we need to do when we see what's going on in the world around us. We start to see it in a certain way, and we need to put on a new pair of glasses, a new way of looking at this. Because what we see around us is just overpowering. I know what you have experienced. It's not just the election in 2010, but the legislative session. How it's shaken the very core of who you are. I mean, if I know one thing for certain, that none of you went into education so you could be a member of NEA. You know, you weren't a senior in high school going, gosh, I'd really like to be a member of IEA, NEA. What should I do? I know, I'll teach. I'll work, I'll be an education support professional. I just want to be a member. No, there's a different reason. Deep down, you made some time in your career, time in your life, you said, I'm going into education. And what amazes me is you're still here, which is another really important thing deep down inside. So, I know that the things you're experiencing and the laws that were passed and the action around you are very difficult. I mean, paid by performance, test scores, when every bit of research and experience shows that it doesn't work and it's wrong, but why would we let intelligent research blind our way to the solution? It's difficult. And I don't know if it helps you to know that, of course, you're not alone. From Alabama to Wisconsin to Ohio, Indiana, Arizona, Florida, New Hampshire, Maine, almost everywhere, there are attacks coming at what we've always believed were just really important. Public education and the profession in which we engage. And what's more troubling to me is that no matter where you go, there seems to be this constant general theme that what we need to do is to give tax breaks to those who have the most, the wealthiest, and the corporations, and then somehow put it on the back of working Americans. Middle class, middle America. IEA has recently been held up as the poster child. In 2009, they had $14 billion of income and paid 0 taxes and got a $2.3 billion credit. Now there's something wrong with that when we have people who can't keep their homes, they're losing their jobs, but that what's most important is that we find a way to give those who aren't losing their homes, who aren't losing their jobs, more money. You know, this last round of tax breaks for the wealthy amounted to $1 trillion. Trillion! Now that probably doesn't come up much in your checking account balance. You know, the average teacher salary in America is about $50,000. How many teachers could you hire for $1 trillion? 20 million. 20 million teachers. But then I got to thinking, I don't know if we need 20 million more at 50,000. Maybe we ought to buy only 10 million and pay them $100,000. Or holds 64% of all the wealth. Did you hear that? 5% holds 64%. The top 1% earn 24% of all income in America. In 1960, the CEO made 42 times the average worker salary. Today, it's 260 times. They make in a day what the average worker makes in a year. There's something wrong with this direction. And we keep going down that same road. And see, the reason we're in the target, in the bullseye, is they understand what our strength is. Part of our strength comes from the incredible passion, and I heard it this morning. It moved me to tears. You're in education because of the students we teach. And they know that. And they know that, and because of that caring, and my first year as a teacher, I just believed if I cared enough, I worked hard enough, I could deliver for every student. But I soon realized that doesn't work. There are too many decision makers outside of my classroom, and I wanted a voice. I wanted someone to speak from where I taught every single day for 23 years in a high school math classroom. I wanted someone going to the legislature saying, no, here's what I need for my students. And that's why I'm in an organization. So the way they attack us is they try and separate our members from the union. They talk about the union goons like me. Because once I left the classroom, of course, I immediately forgot 23 years of my life. So they make a big deal about trying to separate the union leadership and the organization from the individuals who spend their lives. They also recognize that the National Education Association has a unique strength that no other organization has. We're in every single state and in every congressional district. Now, what do you do then? You go after that organization. You go after a structure that allows 3.2 million people who care deeply about education. You get that voice gone. And the only thing that stops you then is nothing. A few people with a lot of money can totally tie up an election in terms of TV time. See, the other great strength are our resources. One is the people. Again, if the union's gone, the association isn't there. How do we have the structures to gather those? And, of course, how do we get our revenue? Through dues deduction. So they're going after that, state after state. The first was Alabama. They didn't take away dues deduction. What they said is you can still have dues deduction, but you can't advocate in the political process. And they included in that you couldn't advocate for smaller class size. You couldn't advocate for additional funding for education. In other words, they said you can have dues deduction, but you can't talk. So they went about going member to member. We have about 100,000 members in Alabama. By the way, that's not a union state. There's no bargaining law. It's a right to work. So they had to go face to face and ask 100,000 people to check a thing on their electronic funds transfer. They're up to 85,000. People stood in line because they don't want their voice to be shut out. So it's time for us to look at that and say, let's look differently at what this might mean for us. Let me tell you, all the things you see, it is not about money. It is not about balancing the budget in tough economic times, and it sure is not about putting students first. What it's about is political payback. It's about silencing the voice of unions and middle-class Americans. And it's about corporations and greedy CEOs who put themselves before country and who put making money ahead of everything else in this great nation. It is the wrong direction for America. And I think it's important that we stand up and say, there are two things I want you to know. To all those people who believe that's the way we ought to go as a nation, number one, we are not going away. No matter how you come after us, we are not going away. We will advocate for our students, for our members, and for middle-class America. And the second thing they must know is you have not demoralized us. You have energized and organized us in a way we have never been before. I heard it from the members of the legislature. We are Are you willing to allow them to silence your voice? Are you? Oh, good. So glad you said that. Are you ready to stand up and to speak out? I need to feel it better. I mean, that is who we are. The idea that those of us who teach and work in public schools are not advocates to be part of the democratic process, there's something wrong with that. I love that you're doing that. And I want you to know I am not depressed. I'm not down and out. I have so many reporters say, man, all of this going on in state after state, you must really be depressed. I go, no, I'm not. I am energized by what I see as opportunities. And I don't just say that as a line. I believe that. You know, I grew up in a small town of 1,700 in Nowheresville, Iowa. And what they told me is that no matter where I wanted to go, education was my vehicle. No matter what dream I had, if I got an education, I could get there. And for 23 years, I lived my dream. I decided in 7th grade I was going to be a teacher. Thought about teaching English, and I thought, oh my gosh, all those theme papers? Poetry? Nah, I got to pick something easy. Math. Math is easy. I'll do that. So I chose to be a math teacher. But it's the power of the real opportunities that we have, and that is who we are. And I'll tell you what I also believe in, that the power we have is about our response. Power. I love that word. And don't tell me you work with young children so you don't want it. I defy you to find a kindergarten teacher who last fall on the first day of school, kids are crying, they're hanging on your leg. Name one person who stood there and said, oh, I hope I'm powerless today. See, power is the ability to act, to influence, to make a difference. When I raised my 2 sons, and in 23 years and the thousands of students that I taught, I always wanted power. I wanted to influence. I wanted to make a difference. And see, the power that we have is in our response. It's not dependent on the toxicity of the people who are attacking us. It's about us. It's about what we choose to do. It's our response to the conditions around us. And that energizes me. I believe in this organization. And there are 2 things we're going to do. Number 1, we will have an aggressive defense. In Idaho and every one of those states and across this country. We are going to put a campaign plan together, whether it's for a referendum, or to elect different people, or to stop actions that are being taken. We're going to do all of that. We will have solid research to look at our frenemies. You know, those people you thought were your friends, and now they're not. We're going to follow the money to find a very very small group of people who are funding these battles in state after state after state. We are going to do all of that. We are going to have a focused and disciplined message. And we are going to unite all of labor across this country. But that is not enough. Instead of the National Unified Labor Table, where we have Rich Trunka as president of AFL-CIO, Joe Hansen from UFCW as part of Change to Win, the largest unions within the AFL and the NEA. And what we're going to do is to make sure that we don't duplicate our efforts, that we use efficiency, but what most important is that we change this direction. But all of that defense is not enough. We must have an offense. And an offense to me is it's time to lead the change in our profession and in public education. I am sick and tired. I don't know about you. I am sick and tired of listening to these silver bullet ideas proposed by people who don't have a clue about education, who've never spent a week or a day in the schools for decades, and they think they know the answer. I am sick and tired of receiving all the blame, no authority to change it. I'm sick and tired of the disrespect. I'll tell you, my blood boils when I read these things that anybody can teach. I mean, the spelling words and math problems in first grade are so easy. Give them a script and you too can be a teacher. That's not true. And we need to respond to that. I'm sick and tired of the disrespect to our education support professionals. Those folks couldn't last a day in the life of our ESPs. And most of all, what I'm really sick and tired of is the insanity of the system about quality teachers. You know, one thing everyone seems to agree is once students are in the classroom, the most power, the ability to influence or make a difference is with the teacher. And so in America, we designed a system that 47% of all teachers hired in America leave in their first 5 years. And to listen to our critics, you know what their biggest problem is? It's too hard to fire all the incompetents who are left. What I would submit to you is if you're losing almost half and you still have all these bad hires, I would say to you your recruitment, training, and hiring practice is broken. You need to fix it. You need to change it. I mean, why in the world would you let anybody into a classroom, test the heck out of their kids, and if you're really horrible, make it easy to fire you? I think there's a better way. I think you ought to not allow anyone into a room with 35 or more students who is not qualified, certified, and licensed. Make sure that they ought to be there. Don't wait till afterward. We need to lead that charge. We need to change the profession. We need to come up with our own solutions about changing what's wrong and what needs to happen in education. I'm not willing to depend on the people on the outside any longer. When it comes to defining what it means to have a quality school, why in the world do we allow the federal government to say, I'll tell you what it is, it's a reading test and a math test. And they label students, schools, and teachers. No. What are the 5 things that you believe are most important? What rule, law, or regulation says you can't communicate with every member in your community saying, these are the 5 things that we want to accomplish for every student in our school? This is what we think are important. Don't ask for permission. Proceed until apprehended. It's time for this. Let me close with this. You know, in life, there are those times that come when you just can't sit back, when you can't sit on the sidelines. Martin Luther King said it beautifully when he said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. What's being discussed in this country right now is not necessarily, as was pointed out, it's not necessarily Republican versus Democrat versus Independent. It's about ideals. It's about a direction for a nation. It's about a country deciding what it is they believe in. Do you take care of those most vulnerable, the young, the elderly, those who don't have as much? Or do you focus all of your energy on providing more to those who already have so much? I think that for me, the country I was raised in, that I listened to my parents, my teachers, my community, it's about an America that cares about its people. It's one that the American dream is real. That if you work hard, that the systems are there, that you can go wherever you need to go. I think that's worth fighting for. I think that's worth giving whatever I do. I want to leave you with this thought. Whenever I get a little down and out, I think of the Montgomery bus boycott. Here's what moves me when I think of that. What it was is they decided to boycott the bus. No one rode the bus for 381 days. 381 days. Now that movement had a tremendous leadership. But leadership can't do that. It depended on the people. Will you or will you not ride that bus? And let me tell you, the people who used that bus, they didn't live close to where they worked. There weren't nice, wide sidewalks from their house to work. The sun doesn't shine every day in Montgomery, Alabama. But for 381 days, every single day, they get up an hour and a half earlier so they could get their kids ready and they could walk to work and walk home. They created an infrastructure and organized and found over 200 different ways to give people rides, but never on the bus. And early in that movement, some of the leaders said, we've already accomplished so much, let's compromise, and they said no. And what I think about is, what is it that I care enough about that I will change my life every day for the next 381 days. You know, it's 357 till the next election. You want an extra hour a day? 30 minutes? 4 hours? What is it that you care deeply about that would make it worth the energy, the sacrifice, the effort? So I think the challenge is to us. 20 years from now, I will not be at the IEA assembly. Bill York, he might be. But I'm not going to be. But I picture myself, 20 years from now, I see a porch, rocking chair, maybe even a glass of bourbon. I don't know, but it's a possibility. And what I want to read about is what the leaders then are saying about us. Those of us who were here in April of 2011, those of us who lived through the 2010 election, and we saw the last legislative session, and we said, what are we going to do? What's our response? And when I read what they say 20 years from now about us now, I hope they never ever say we were timid or shy. I hope what they say about us is that we had the audacity to dream big, that we had the courage to act. But most importantly, I hope they say we have the power, the ability to act, to influence, to make a difference, to make our reality come true. So IEA, I hope you're ready. Are you ready?